Discipline is the new power, and most people don't even know they're running on chaos. Wake up, scroll your phone, eat junk, waste time, lie to yourself that tomorrow you'll do better. Andrew Tate didn't need more money. He didn't need more fame. What he needed was order. What he found was discipline, not the kind you fake on camera, but the kind you earn in silence when no one's clapping for you. Think about your own life. How many times have you promised yourself to wake up early, to hit the gym, to stick to a routine, and then you snooze the alarm, not once, every single morning? You betray yourself before the world even opens its eyes. You say you want success, but you can't even win the first battle of the day. Tate talks about how Islam forced him to structure his time, to discipline his thoughts, to control his desires. In a world that says, do, you feel, he chose to do what's hard. That's not weakness, that's strength on another level. 5 times a day, you stop everything and reconnect with something bigger. Try doing that consistently. No excuses, no delays, just raw commitment. That's not religion, that's self-mastery. Most people live like leaves in the wind, blown around by whatever feels good in the moment. Discipline is like planting your feet in the ground and saying, I decide, not my cravings, not my fears, not my emotions, me. And that's what makes Tate so different. It's not just the cars and the suits, it's the calm, the control. The fact that when he walks into a room, he's not chasing anything. He's already centered, already aligned. You ever wonder why some people, no matter how loud the world gets, they're just focused, locked in? It's because they've trained themselves. Discipline isn't sexy. No one claps when you skip the party to study. No one cheers when you say no to distractions. But in those small moments, you build a version of yourself that can't be shaken. Tate found that power through discipline, and discipline came through a system that demanded it. When you're forced to stop, reflect, sacrifice, delay gratification over and over again, you start killing the weak version of you, the lazy version, the addicted version, and what's left is someone who can face chaos and not flinch. Look at anyone who's truly great. Athletes, soldiers, entrepreneurs, monks. They all have one thing in common: discipline. Now imagine adding meaning to that. Imagine stacking purpose on top of structure. That's when you stop being just a man and start becoming a weapon. The world can't touch you when you've built yourself from fire. You wake up before the sun, not because you have to, but because you promised yourself you would. You fast, not because you're starving, but because you're proving that your stomach isn't your master. You pray, not because it's tradition, but because you're reminding your soul who's in control. That kind of daily practice hardens your mind. It sharpens your will. It clears the noise. Everyone talks about hustle. Everyone talks about success, but no one talks about the cost, the hours no one sees, the moments you're tempted and say no, the nights you're tired and still show up. That's what Tate found. And he didn't find it in chaos. He found it in the strict, ordered rhythm of a system that doesn't bend for feelings. You want to change your life. Don't look for motivation. Build discipline. Because motivation fades, feelings lie. The only thing that'll carry you through the dark days, the lonely days, the doubting days, is discipline. And the best part, you don't have to be rich. You don't need a following. You don't need permission. You just decide today, now, and then you do it again tomorrow, and again, until you stop recognizing the old version of you, until you walk into the world with power that doesn't scream, but radiates. Submission isn't weakness. It's the beginning of real strength. Most people hear the word and instantly recoil. They think it means giving up, bowing down, letting go of control, but they're wrong, because real submission isn't about being dominated. It's about choosing to align yourself with something bigger than your ego. And that takes courage. That takes brutal honesty. That takes power. Every day you're submitting to something. The question is, what? Your cravings, your fears, your habits. When you reach for your phone first thing in the morning, you're submitting. When you let anger control your words, you're submitting. When you stay quiet because you're afraid of judgment, you're submitting. But that kind of submission is invisible. It's sneaky. It eats away at your strength from the inside out. Andrew Tate talks about submitting to something greater, not because he's weak, because he understands the chaos that comes from worshiping yourself. The world tells you you're your own God, your own truth, your own guide. But then people wonder why they feel lost, anxious, broken. They chase highs and still feel empty. Because without submission to order, without something greater than your own desires, you're just drifting, a slave to your own emotions. Real submission is like standing in the middle of a storm, planting your feet and saying, I'm not the center of the universe, and that's okay. There's power in that. It gives you focus. It gives you direction. You're not wasting energy proving you're right. You're not chasing approval. You're grounded. Your ego takes a back seat and your soul takes the wheel. Take a fighter in the ring. When he submits to discipline, to training, to the process, he becomes dangerous. Why? Because he's not impulsive, he's not distracted, he's mastered himself. That's what Tate found. A kind of submission that doesn't weaken the man, it sharpens him. It trims the fat, kills the noise, removes the fluff. When you submit to purpose, you don't lose freedom, you gain it. You're not being pulled in 1,000 directions anymore. You're locked in. You want a daily example. Look at someone fasting, not just skipping meals. They're saying no to the most basic urge, hunger. Try that. Try saying no to your body when it's screaming for food. And not because you're trying to lose weight, but because you're proving a point. Because you're saying, I'm in charge, not my stomach, not my impulse, me. That's not weakness. That's strength disguised as stillness. People confuse loud with strong. They think raising your voice, showing off, dominating others, that's power. But real strength is silent. It's the guy who walks into a room and doesn't need to prove anything. It's the man who has every excuse to quit but doesn't. The one who has desires but chooses restraint. Who could go left but chooses right, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Submission to a greater system, a greater truth forces you to rise. It doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't soften for your comfort. It challenges you, and in that challenge you transform. The weak parts of you start to burn off. You don't rely on luck. You don't wait for motivation. You show up every single day knowing exactly why you're doing it. Imagine submitting to a code so strong it turns chaos into clarity. Imagine handing over your ego and picking up purpose. That's not defeat. That's awakening. That's stepping out of your small, confused self and becoming something real, something unshakable, something unbreakable. Islam demands self-mastery in a way most people aren't ready for. It's not just belief, it's action. It's a lifestyle that doesn't bend to your emotions. It bends your emotions to discipline. That's why it's so powerful, because in a world full of instant gratification, Islam teaches you to pause, to resist, to observe yourself. It's not asking for perfection. It's demanding effort, consistency, integrity, and that's what creates real masculinity. Not muscles, not loud voices, not status, but the ability to control yourself when everything inside you wants to break loose. Imagine this. Waking up before the sun rises. The world is quiet, the streets are empty, and your body begs you to stay in bed. But you don't. You move. You clean yourself. You face a direction that reminds you the world doesn't revolve around you. And you begin, in that moment, you're not just praying, you're taking command of your day, of your soul, of your energy, the discipline to rise when it's uncomfortable, to do what's right when no one is watching. That's the root of masculine power. You can lift weights, build a business, win fights, but if you can't master your desires, your ego will own you. Islam doesn't let that happen. It's structured like a battlefield, and the enemy is your own weakness. 5 times a day, it interrupts the chaos, tells you stop, focus. Remember who you are. Remember who you're not. While the world says, follow your heart, Islam says, train your heart. Check your intentions. Audit your thoughts. Look at fasting. You want to understand self-mastery. Don't eat or drink from dawn to dusk, and not just avoiding food, but guarding your words, your gaze, your temper. Try walking through a day like that in a world filled with temptations, where ads scream pleasure and people chase comfort like it's oxygen. And still you say no, not today, not right now. Not because you can't, but because you choose not to. That's not weakness, that's dominance over your lower self. The modern man is being told he needs to be softer, more agreeable, more passive. But that's not balance. That's surrender. Islam gives balance, mercy and might, humility and fire. It teaches you how to walk into a room without needing validation, how to carry yourself with calm strength, how to lead your life instead of being led by trends, opinions, and shallow desires. Real masculinity is built in private, through repetition, through ritual, through rules that sharpen you, not cage you. People talk about freedom like it means doing whatever you feel like. But that kind of freedom is a trap. It makes you a slave to impulse. Islam offers a different kind of freedom, The kind you earn by mastering your body, your tongue, your time. When you fast, when you pray, when you give from your wealth, when you hold back from anger, you're rewriting your character. You're stepping above the noise, and suddenly you're not just a man, you're a force, unshaken, unmoved. Think about how many times your day gets hijacked, scrolling aimlessly, arguing over nonsense, craving what you don't need. Now imagine a system that slices through all that, a rhythm that centers you, that teaches you when to speak, when to be silent, when to act, when to walk away. That's what self-mastery is. It's not control over others, it's control over yourself, over the restless, undisciplined parts of you that want to stay average. And when you conquer yourself, everything else falls into place. Respect, focus, growth, it all starts from within. And the way Islam is built, it doesn't let you hide from your reflection. It holds a mirror to your habits, your thoughts, your soul. And it says level up, not for the world, not for likes, for your own evolution, for your own legacy. For the fire inside you waiting to be forged into something unbreakable. Raw truth resonates because people are starving for something real. They've been lied to so many times, they don't even trust their own instincts anymore. Every scroll, every ad, every influencer, it's all filtered, it's all polished, it's all pretending to be perfect. But deep down, everyone knows life isn't perfect. People are depressed behind smiles, they're lonely behind followers, they're broken behind designer clothes. So when someone like Andrew Tate speaks with raw truth, no sugarcoating, no fake humility, it hits hard. Not because he's saying what's easy, but because he's saying what nobody else has the guts to say. He's not trying to make you feel good. He's trying to wake you up. There's a difference. One is comfort, the other is impact, and impact lasts. Think about it. When someone tells you the truth, even if it hurts, you remember it. It stings, but it stays. Because deep down, you know they're not lying to you. They're not selling you something. They're not trying to be liked. They're trying to snap you out of the fog you've been living in. You ever had a friend who didn't sugarcoat things? The one who said, you're messing up, you're being lazy, you're better than this. In the moment, you hated it, but later, you respected them. Because while everyone else was fake smiling, they were brave enough to tell you the truth. That's what Tate does. That's why people listen. Because when he talks, it doesn't feel like a script. It feels like a mirror. We live in a world where everything's been turned into marketing, even pain, even struggle. People cry on camera for views. They pretend to be authentic for clout. But the thing about raw truth is, it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's steady, calm, undeniable. And when you hear it, it cuts through the noise like a blade, because you're used to fluff. You're used to lies that sound nice, and then someone drops a sentence that makes your soul flinch. He says things like, you're broke because you're lazy. You're unhappy because you lack purpose. You're anxious because you don't discipline your mind. And the average person wants to get offended. They want to argue. But after the emotions settle, they realize, damn, he's right. And that's why it resonates, because it's not designed to flatter your ego. It's designed to confront it, to destroy it, to rebuild something stronger in its place. You go online and see people posting quotes about success, happiness, inner peace. But behind the scenes, they don't live it, they preach it, but don't breathe it. When Tate talks, he's not reading from a script, he's talking from the trenches, from experience, from wins and losses, from pain and victory. And people feel that. They don't have to agree with every word, but they feel the rawness, the fire, the conviction. And that makes all the difference. Truth is magnetic when it comes from the gut. And people, even the broken ones, even the skeptical ones, are drawn to it because they're tired of pretending, they're tired of playing along. They want someone to say, you're not a victim, you're responsible. Your life is a result of your choices. You can change, but not if you keep lying to yourself. That kind of honesty is rare, and rare things carry weight. Raw truth doesn't need lighting. It doesn't need a script. It doesn't ask for applause. It just shows up, looks you in the eye, and demands you take a hard look at who you are. And for the first time in a long time, people stop, breathe, and actually think, not scroll, not react, think, because something finally made sense in a world that's been faking everything. And in that moment, they don't need another motivation reel. They need more of this truth without filters, honesty without fear, words that don't whisper but roar straight into your soul. But raw truth resonates because deep down, every person is sick of being lied to, not just by others, but by themselves. every day. People put on a face, wear the mask, pretend everything is fine. They go to jobs they hate, stay in relationships that drain them, scroll through social media convincing themselves they're happy. But when the noise fades, when they're alone in their rooms with the lights off and the phone down, something whispers inside, this isn't who you really are. And that's when raw truth hits. Because it doesn't play games. It doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about waking you up. Andrew Tate speaks that kind of truth. Not polished, not wrapped in politeness, just direct, unfiltered truth, and people listen. Not because they agree with everything he says, but because for once someone is saying what others are too afraid to admit. He says it like it is. You're not broke because of the government. You're not fat because of bad genetics. You're not stuck because the world is unfair. You're there because of your choices, your laziness, your fear. Your excuse is harsh, maybe honest, absolutely, and that honesty, brutal, raw, unapologetic, is what people need in a world where everyone's trying to sell a lie that feels good. Look around, motivational videos are everywhere, quotes flooding your feed, influencers pretending they're perfect, but none of it sticks, none of it changes you, because it's all smoke. And then someone like Tate speaks, and it's like getting slapped in the face. Suddenly your excuses feel thin, your justifications feel weak. Because now the spotlight's on you, and the mirror isn't lying. Think about this. When was the last time someone looked you in the eye and told you you're wasting your life? That you're more capable than the version of yourself you've been tolerating, that you're sleeping on your potential? Most people don't say those things. They avoid the discomfort. They'd rather protect your feelings than challenge your limits, but not him. He says it straight. You're failing because you've accepted mediocrity. You're losing because you stopped fighting, and it stings, it really does. But pain is how you grow. Comfort is how you rot. When truth punches you in the gut, it forces you to stand up straighter, to ask questions, to dig deeper, to say, maybe he's right. Maybe I've been lying to myself for too long, and that realization, that spark of honesty, is where transformation begins. Raw truth doesn't come with soft music and pretty words. It comes with silence, with reflection, with that gut feeling that you've been called out, and not out of hate, but out of challenge, because someone believes you're capable of more. Andrew Tate isn't trying to be your friend. He's not here to comfort your ego. He's here to tear it apart so the real version of you can finally come out. It's like ripping off a bandage. At first, it hurts, but then you realize the wound underneath needed air, needed exposure, needed truth. The world will keep feeding you lies to keep you quiet, passive, weak, but raw truth. It doesn't care about likes. It doesn't care about going viral. It cares about impact, about waking people up from the dream they've been living in. You've been told to be nice, to play it safe, to keep your head down, but where has that gotten you? Raw truth says raise your head, face the storm, accept responsibility, stop waiting for life to hand you something and start taking it. People connect with that not because it's comfortable, but because it's real. It's the only thing that breaks through the numbness. And when it does, there's no going back, because once you've heard it, once you've felt it, the lies you've been living with just don't work anymore. Masculinity needs grounding, because without it, it becomes lost, unstable, and eventually destructive. In today's world, men are being pulled in every direction. One voice says be softer, be passive, be quiet. Another says dominate, conquer, don't feel. And in the middle of that noise, the modern man is breaking. He doesn't know who he is anymore. He doesn't know what to follow, what to fight for, what to believe. That confusion is not just emotional, it's spiritual. Because a man without direction becomes a man without identity. And this is where Islam steps in, not as a religion to decorate your life, but as a complete code that demands structure. It gives men a foundation, not just a rule book, but a purpose, something solid to stand on when the world shakes. It says, here is how you carry yourself. Here is how you treat people. Here's how you lead, how you speak, how you live. And that clarity becomes armor in a society that constantly wants to redefine what it means to be a man. Imagine waking up every day knowing exactly who you are. Not because someone told you, not because a trend told you to be that way, but because you've built your life on values that don't change with the wind. Values like discipline, loyalty, courage, humility, self-control. Values that teach you how to be strong without being cruel, how to be kind without being weak, how to be fierce without being reckless. This is the kind of masculinity Islam cultivates. Not ego-driven, but purpose-driven. You see it in the way it commands your time. 5 daily prayers, not when you feel like it, but at set times that teaches you structure, self-respect. It forces you to take responsibility for your minutes, your thoughts, your body. No one's going to wake you up at dawn but you. No one's going to control your gaze but you. No one's going to hold your tongue when you're angry but you. That's grounded masculinity, not one that looks outside for power, but one that builds power within. Think of a man who doesn't ground himself. He's easily swayed. He chases money, validation, women, and every time he gets one, it slips through his hands. He's loud but insecure, aggressive but afraid. He's trying to prove his worth every second because deep down he doesn't feel any. And then compare him to the man who walks in quiet confidence. He doesn't need to yell. He doesn't need to show off. His discipline speaks for him. His silence is louder than noise because he knows who he is, and that knowledge comes from the code he lives by. This kind of grounding doesn't come from books or podcasts. It comes from living with intention, from submitting to something that demands more from you than the world ever will, from having rules that don't break just because you're tired, emotional, or tempted. Islam gives you that. It doesn't care if you're having a bad day. It still calls you to stand, to pray, to fast, to give, to resist. And in doing so, it builds a man that nothing can shake. Society wants men who are easy to control. Islam wants men who can control themselves. That's the difference. It's not about controlling others. It's not about showing dominance. It's about leading by example, being the calm in the chaos, being the fire that doesn't burn out. And when a man has that grounding, he becomes a force of peace and strength, not confusion and noise. He doesn't search for his worth in other people's eyes. He already knows it because his value comes from within, from action, from discipline, from living in alignment with a higher code that keeps him rooted when the world keeps spinning. Freedom comes from boundaries, not from doing whatever you want whenever you feel like it. People have been sold the biggest lie of this generation, that freedom means no rules, no restrictions, no responsibilities. That if you can go anywhere, eat anything, say anything, chase every pleasure, you're truly free. But look around, are people really free, or are they slaves to their impulses, addicted to their screens, broken by their own choices, drowning in regret disguised as fun? Think about it. The guy who drinks every night, scrolls until 3 a.m., sleeps around with no connection, skips work, skips responsibility. He might look free, but he's not. He's chained, not by someone else, but by himself. Every decision is based on feeling, not wisdom. Every action is an escape, not a step forward. And when life hits him hard, and it always does, he has no shield, no system, no boundaries. Because he was too busy chasing fake freedom to build real strength. Real freedom is the ability to say no. No to laziness, no to comfort, no to distraction. Real freedom is waking up early because you chose to master your time. It's training your body, not because society told you to, but because you respect yourself enough to stay strong. It's walking past temptation and smiling, not because you're blind to it, because you're bigger than it. That's the kind of power no one can take from you. Andrew Tate speaks about this a lot, about how people think rules are cages, but they're not. They're tools. When he talks about Islam, he doesn't see a system that limits him. He sees one that liberates him. Fasting isn't suffering, it's strength. Praying isn't obligation, it's clarity. Avoiding destructive behavior isn't restriction, it's protection. Those boundaries don't make him less, they make him unstoppable. They turn noise into focus, chaos into direction, weakness into command. Look at any successful athlete. Their life is full of boundaries, strict diets, strict routines, strict training. They don't eat what they want. They don't sleep all day. They don't waste time. And what do we call them? Disciplined, elite, champions. So why is it that when a man chooses to live with spiritual discipline, people call him oppressed? Why is it that self-control in the gym is praised, but self-control in life is mocked? Because people are afraid of real freedom. They don't want to face themselves. They don't want to admit that their lack of boundaries is the very thing keeping them weak. It's easier to laugh, to mock, to rebel, But deep down, and when the party's over, when the noise dies, they wish they had something real to hold on to, something that tells them what matters, something that brings peace instead of confusion. Freedom isn't walking in every direction and calling it a journey. It's knowing your path and staying on it even when it's hard. Freedom is found in knowing your limits, not avoiding them. A river without banks becomes a flood. A fire without control becomes destruction. And a life without boundaries becomes meaningless. Islam gives those boundaries, not to punish, but to protect, not to limit joy, but to guide it, not to take away your strength, but to channel it towards something that lasts. The man who lives with boundaries doesn't need to prove himself. His discipline speaks before he does. His eyes are focused. His energy is pure. He doesn't chase everything. He chooses wisely. And because of that, he walks lighter. He sleeps better. He thinks clearer. Because he's not pulled by every temptation, he's grounded in something deeper, something unshakable, something real. And that kind of freedom is rare, powerful, and untouchable. You've heard it all before, haven't you? People say, change your life, be better, fix yourself. But most of the time it's empty. Most of the time it sounds good for 5 minutes, and then you fall back into the same habits, the same thoughts, the same tired version of yourself. But this isn't that. This isn't a soft push or a shallow whisper. This is a wake-up call. This is a roar straight to your soul telling you that you were not born to live average. You were not built to exist on autopilot. You were meant for more. They told you to follow the crowd, to do what feels good, to avoid anything uncomfortable. But the truth is, every strong man, every true leader, every unstoppable warrior was forged in discomfort. Pressure creates diamonds. Fire refines gold. Storms make stronger roots. You want a life that matters, then step into the fire. Stop looking for easy. Easy never made legends. Comfort never built kings. Growth only happens in the grind. Power is born in pain, and peace is found when you've fought the war within and come out standing tall. Remember this. You're one decision away from changing everything. One decision to stop blaming the world and start owning your story. One decision to stop chasing distraction and start living with direction. One decision to stop asking for permission and start moving with purpose, because the world will never hand you power. You have to take it. You have to earn it. Every morning you wake up, it's you versus you. The weak version of you wants to sleep and skip the work, ignore the truth. The strong version of you wants to rise, to grind, to build, to conquer. And every day, you choose which one wins. People won't understand your discipline. They'll call you obsessed, cold, arrogant. Let them talk. Lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep, because while they laugh, you work. While they rest, you rise. While they scroll, you study. You train your mind. You train your body. You train your soul. And one day, when your life looks nothing like theirs, when you walk into rooms with unshakable presence, when you speak with fire and move with power, they'll wonder how you did it, and you'll smile because you'll know you chose the hard road, the real road, the road most men are too afraid to walk. You see, this isn't just about being better. It's about becoming something greater, becoming the man who leads, not follows, the man who commands, not begs, the man who creates his path, not waits for one. Discipline is your weapon. Truth is your compass, faith is your shield, and purpose is your fuel. This is your formula for greatness. This is the blueprint for becoming untouchable in a world that's constantly trying to pull you down. Don't just chase success. Become the type of man who attracts it. Become the man who doesn't need motivation because he runs on commitment. The man who doesn't need applause because he moves in silence. The man who doesn't beg for respect because he lives in a way that demands it, and when it gets hard, and it will. Remember, hard times don't last, but hard men do. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. Sweat now so you don't bleed. Later, pain is temporary, pride is forever. Your life is your message to the world. Make it fierce, make it fearless, make it unforgettable. Stop existing and start dominating. Stop wishing and start working. Stop waiting and start becoming. Greatness isn't given, it's taken. Legacy isn't found, it's built. And right now, in this very moment, you have the chance to rise, to break every chain, to silence every doubt, to ignite every corner of your soul with the fire you've been hiding. No more excuses, no more delay. This is your time. This is your shot. This is the chapter where everything changes, not because someone saved you, but because you decided to save yourself.